I tell you what, I really want them to stop playing beautiful pictures of St. Lucia because it's sleeting. There is ice falling from the sky outside and I can't cope. Freezing.
The beanie kind of gives it away that the beanie gives it away that you're not enjoying the weather at the moment.
It sucks. But you know what? I'm going to just muscle through it. So let's get on with the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Timed Out after the fifth T20 of the series between Australia and the West Indies. And it was another loss to Australia. Lost the toss for the first time and match not for the first time. You're very sorry to see the back of this series, I know, Lockie.
Look, it's been a tough one, especially as an Aussie, looking at what this sort of squad could do ahead of the World Cup. I think we're really hoping to see some players put their hands up for 4 positions in that squad later this year when it comes around to October. And really, besides one man, Mitch Marsh, there's not much to look at there for Australian selectors, and they'll be hoping that they can gain some more respectability in the one-day series starting later this week.
Yes, 3 ODIs to come to the back of these 5 T20s as part of this particular tour. But we are ready. We've got our stopwatches ready. Usual rules, 90 seconds each for the topics for today. If you do have any questions or comments, please do leave them in the chat section and we will aim to include as many of them as we can. Hit the like button and do subscribe because we'll be back a lot more over this Australian winter as well, so here on Sporting News. Anyway, let's get on with it. And our first topic for Timed Out is, okay, there we go. West Indies put the power in power play. I'm going to let you go first, Lockie.
All right, thanks for that. Thank you, Mel. I'll let you get a bit of a chance to warm up a little bit more. I mean, looking at this power play, it was quite remarkable. They were 1 for 81 after the 6 overs, the West Indies, and mainly that was Mr. Evan Lewis himself, who just went absolutely nuts. I mean, poor Jason Behrendorff got hit out of the attack. We kind of saw in that 4th T20, bowling his overs in the power play was a good option, but he finished with, I think, none for 47, or he was in the 40s off his 3 overs, which was really, it's not what you need from a strike bowler whose main goal in the team is to bowl that line and length and kind of really be consistent and try and keep the run rate down early when you've only got 2 outside the rope, and he just wasn't able to do that. I thought Josh Hazlewood actually did all right in the power play. He had 2 overs, and obviously Zampa, he did well for his first ball. I mean, he got the wicket with his first ball with a lovely little Yorker there, but then Chris Gale just went nuts. Chris Gale loves facing Adam Zampa. Hit him for, I think, 20 off the next 5 balls. So, yeah, it was a very dangerous time there. Lewis finished with 46 not out in the power play. He obviously went on to score 70-odd, I think 79 off 39 balls, but 46 off 17 balls in the power play. That's just an incredible start. And, I mean, we'll go into it a bit later about how the Aussies were able to reel the West Indies in, but it's just remarkable. The Aussies had no answers to that 6-hitting ability that Evan Lewis had today.
I'm just letting that sound effect breathe.
Yes, good.
Yes, it was. So there are all the numbers there, which tell a story. But beyond the numbers, it was, for me, it was just the way that he was striking them. I was just closing my eyes and listening to the ping off the bat. That was some of the cleanest striking that you see in the match. Absolutely sensational from Evan Lewis as well. I thought it was one of those funny things, wasn't it? When Adam Zampa first ball, he gets Andre Fletcher out, and then out walks Chris Gale. It just didn't get any better. Well, it scored 21 off 7 balls. So they were lucky that in the end they did dismiss him when they did. So interesting, the West Indies really they've sort of improve in the power play every time, and then they've tended to just peter off a little bit. So they're absolutely maximising the power play. And for me, it's just really interesting seeing Australia. They've done okay in some power plays and then had their middle order collapse as well. But when you just look at the benchmarks really that are being set, we saw England and Pakistan play an unbelievable T20 match with scoring, 35-400 from Liam Livingstone in an innings where England actually lost. That is some of the benchmark T20 cricket that we're seeing here, and seeing it from the West Indies as well, just being able to score so quickly. I think Australia definitely fall short of that, perhaps even when they get their start back. Thank you, thank you. And I can just see a comment come in from Phil's F saying, "Is this live? Is this game on now or finished?" Phil's F, where are you being, man? Come on. Yes, the game is finished. Yes, Australia, well, they lost by 16 runs, but we're very, very happy that you've joined us live. So thank you very much for coming along. And so as you can tell, I've just proved to you that this is indeed live. Yes. Our second timed out topic for the day, Australia's fight back. Well, you mentioned that earlier, Lockie. I'm feeling generous today. I'm going to let you go first again.
Oh gosh, really? This is nice. This is almost like Finchy letting Pooran win the toss today. I feel like, yeah, very nice of you. Yeah, no, Australia's fight back was quite impressive. As I sort of said, they got off to a fast start, but the West Indies were 2 for 119 after their 10 overs, and the Aussies managed to keep them below 8 and an over for the next, I guess, 10 overs, which was quite remarkable. They only scored 80 runs off the next 10 overs. So usually in T20, you think about, okay, at the 12 over mark, we want to double, but Australia really managed to keep that down. I thought personally the most impressive for me, again, was Mitch Marsh in his 2 overs. I mean, 2 for 12. Again, he's the highest wicket taker for Australia this series, and he's barely bowled his 4 overs in each of the matches, so it's quite remarkable, really. I thought Adam Zampa and AJ Tye were quite good. AJ Tye, obviously, his first match of the series. Adam Zampa, another couple of wickets, obviously got smacked for that 1 over from Chris Gale, but if you take that out, he only went for 10 runs off his other 3 overs, so some pretty good figures there. AJ Tye, great at getting sort of some wickets towards the back end of a series. Mitch Swepson, I was impressed with. I thought it was a shame we didn't see more of him this series. Obviously got the 1 wicket, got the massive wicket there of Chris Gale, but yeah, just kind of didn't see enough of him. He still got punished a little bit in that 1 over as well. So plenty of positives there that they can take away from that last 10 overs.
Yes, there was. There was indeed. It was really, really funny to see both Zampa and Swepson come in and get a big wicket in their first over. As I said, Zampa just getting one first ball, and then it was Swepson on his 3rd ball to dismiss Chris Gale. He did bowl well. I thought, it's pretty difficult for him coming in at this stage, and when the West Indies are doing whatever. So there was kind of some push from him, and then there was a lot of push back from the West Indies, who just use the conditions and use the crosswind at that stadium so incredibly well. But it was pleasing to see Australia really fight back, and I agree with you. I thought Andrew Tye actually bowled really well. He had some new batters at the crease at the end, which was helpful as well in being able to bowl some dot balls. And West Indies probably, they're one of those teams that can still score lots of runs, but have a higher dot ball percentage than a lot of teams at that level tend to do. But it was something. It's hard to just see how much Australia take out of this. This tour feels like a bit of a shambles, not just because of those players, but just because of the circumstances, the players missing, everything else. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of cohesion to this. So at least in this case, after being battered, it was really, I thought, pleasing to see Australia come back, but I still don't know what their best team is. Oh, that was it. I was doing the countdown. Oh, counting down
the
again.
Double countdown.
Oh, I'm so confused. Double countdown.
It's like when the Oscars music plays you off. You got to go. You got to go when the duck starts sounding.
Hey, I'm just going to bring up a couple of comments. Thanks to everybody for joining us live, by the way, from Mohammed Zubair, who says, Melissa, it might be irrelevant since we're discussing Oz West Indies, but I would like to hear from you about Pakistan, England. Look, that's our T20 cricket is different from ODIs. Australia need to have proper batsmen for spin-friendly pitches of the UAE. Spinner's going to play a big role in the World Cup. That's the second part of that comment from Mohammed Zubair there. It's not actually irrelevant at all. Yes, we're talking about it, and that's why I mentioned it beforehand, just because we've seen, that match between Pakistan and England. I felt this about Australia's one-day approach before the last World Cup, that it kind of felt a little bit old-fashioned, not old-fashioned, but a little bit dated. Yeah, and I did feel that sort of quite strongly before the last World Cup. That's how I feel about T20 cricket in Australia. I think others are setting the benchmark and taking the game forward. Teams like England and Pakistan and India and West Indies. So like, you look at those teams and you see them really taking the game forward in what they're able to do. And Australia feels like it's still learning and still trying to kind of get there. So that, for me, I think is the significance of what we're seeing in the Pakistan-England game. How about you, Locke?
Yeah, I definitely tend to agree. I think spin, batting against spin is going to play a big role. Obviously, I mean, we've got another comment here from Dashan who's talking about where was the hype around Alex Carey. Obviously, Alex Carey being brought into the squad because he's renowned as a good player of spin, but that's something we just haven't seen this series. He just hasn't been able to get going, which of course is disappointing. I don't think there's no doubting Carey's talent with the bat, but yeah, I just feel like he's more suited to that one-day format where he's got that time to build his innings. In terms of Australia's style of play, I feel like we see a lot of similarities in terms of what Justin Langer was doing with the Perth Scorchers when he was the coach there, that they were really dominant on those fast, bouncy tracks where pace was king and they could hit for six easily, and spin wouldn't have as much of an impact. And we're kind of seeing some similarities in terms of that style of play there. I feel like that you can look at Perth Scorchers winning squads from earlier in the BBL and look at this Australia side and notice those similarities. We've got those quick bowlers who are focused on getting wickets early. Then you try and restrict the batters in the middle overs, and it just hasn't worked against these other teams that have kind of developed their game a little bit more.
Yeah, another comment there from Pankaj on Alex Carey. Not a T20 kind of player, I guess. Inglis should be there. Just made me his fan from his blast innings. I know you're a big fan of Josh Inglis, so we'll see. But I'm still looking for that player who could be a Livingston and coming.
He's sitting behind me. He's sitting behind me. He needed a chance today. He should have been playing today.
Dan Christian was not playing today. Well, thanks. And more comments coming in. We will try and get to a few of those, but now it is time for our next topic of the day.
Oh, let's do it.
Sharp fielding. Yes. Sharp fielding. I mean, that catch, what I love, we saw a catch go viral from the England-India series, women's series with Harleen Deal, that going viral and being on SportsCenter. I hope ESPN SportsCenter pick up Fabian Allen's catch, because that was amazing. What was really incredible is when I was watching it live and Aaron Finch, gets a full toss, belts it straight down the ground. You didn't even see him come into frame until the last millisecond of that. He was absolutely flying, and to take that one-handed and absorb the impact on the ground, I just thought that was an absolutely brilliant outfield catch at speed. And not just that, you had some really great fielding when it came to direct hits. Nicholas Pooran, of course, affecting the run out of Moses and Reeds. It was all round really sharp. You saw Australia drop a catch. AJ Ty unfortunately dropped one off his own fielding. It looked like he sort of got himself into the wrong position and ended up reaching for it sort of with his hands perhaps around the wrong way. But again, that benchmark, and I've been banging on about this for ages. Like, I think we need better stats and metrics for fielding in cricket, and that's one reason why. Thank you.
Where was the count? Didn't even get a countdown this time.
Poor Muku. He's having countdown issues. He's having performance issues with his stopwatch. Go for it, Lockie.
Well, I'll start my 90 seconds now. Yeah, look, that fielding, I think their fielding across the series has been remarkable, and I wouldn't necessarily say Australia's fielding has been bad, but I think just in comparison to the West Indies, theirs has just been a class above. And I mean, it's the oldest saying in cricket, catches win matches, but it kind of shows that Finch, if he can get going there, even though he was looking injured at certain parts of his innings and was struggling to run, he has that six hitting ability. Like, he can do a Chris Gale. He can just stand and deliver and hit a six out of the park. So that was such an important moment in the match, because if that goes for four and Finch gets a bit of momentum on, then suddenly we're looking at Australia getting a lot closer to this target than they eventually did, and Finch staying in for a lot longer than they did. It kind of turned the momentum, because then Moses Enriquez fell and a couple of other quick wickets in Australia were gone in the match. So not only was it big for that specific wicket, but it kind of you almost could say it turned the match in West Indies' favour because it was still very much in the balance up until that point. I was really impressed with Pooran's run out to get Moses Enriquez a few balls later. I mean, you can question maybe whether there was a run there, whether they should have run there, but he's got to do what he's got to do. Pooran threw the stumps down, great effort, and yeah, that was just remarkable. And time again, we've just seen the West Indies fielding be so on point. I mean, Zampa, yes, he should have had his bat on the ground, but he still got run out because it was a great piece of fielding. So yeah, it's something that Australia will pride themselves on and they'll work on to make sure it's at the top point before the World Cup.
There we go. And I'm going to bring in some comments in a second, but I am just going to bring up our last one because it probably works with the with the comments that are coming in as well. Oh no, we're still up to that. Oh gosh, time's going. Okay, the predictable collapse. It just keeps happening, doesn't it? They tried something different. They dropped Matthew Wade down the order to come in the middle order, which is, you know, that's fair enough to give Philippe a go at the top. But again, that hasn't worked. None of the batters who have come into the side to be sort of given a chance to prove themselves have done so at all. I really don't think. And you've just seen that. It's just happened every single time. This was probably the longest tail. I mean, where on the team sheet, they had Mitchell Swepson listed as batting as a number 7. And then in the end, we saw AJ Tye batting at number 7. That says a fair bit about where this team is. And what was that plan today? I mean, you know, where does that stand? Was it just, okay, we're giving people a go today? I don't understand how that was ever going to be a batting lineup that you could trust with losing wickets so much, depending on Mitch Marsh, I think, and Aaron Finch generally, to make runs. And it has all through this series really been up to them with a little bit from Matthew Wade. So Australia's batting on the players we have here is obviously an issue in itself, but then also just, I guess, the order. How did it happen? And it's changed. Like, they said they didn't have cricket smarts in the first one. They played the situation wrong, but then at other times they haven't been up to it, and they've had a lot of trouble with Walsh Jr. as well in those middle orders.
Yeah, it really was concerning. I think in the middle, looking at the numbers, 2 for 95 they were at one point, and they went to 6 for 137. So they lost 4 for 40 odd in those key middle overs there, where they could have had a lot of momentum and they just struggled to build that. I liked the elevation of Philippe to give him a chance, but again, he's just kind of struggled this series. It hasn't been the series for him. Look, we know he's talented. I don't think there's any doubt that he will find his place in this Australian side eventually. But yeah, he's just struggling to make that change to international cricket at the moment, and it'll come. It'll take time. So while it won't help him in terms of this year's T20 World Cup, I mean, we've got another one next year. We've got plenty more T20 cricket coming in the coming years. So yeah, he'll be around the team very shortly. Alex Carey, again, we've spoken about already this show, but just did not make an impact this series. I mean, the incredible stat that I found after the last couple of balls of this match, Josh Hazlewood has now hit more sixes this series. Only the one. He's now hit more sixes combined than Alex Carey, Josh Philippe, Ashton Turner, and Ben McDermott. All 4 of those batters did not get a single 6 for the series, which is quite remarkable. I mean, yeah, it's just, you look at that team and you just think, there's obviously players to come back in, like Smith and Maxwell, 100% are in their strongest side, and they will give a lot more balance and a lot more depth to that Australian batting lineup. It's just about finding the people who are going to complement them now, because I think Mitch Marsh, I think we can agree, has got his spot almost secured now after an incredible series where he's averaged 43 or 44 with the bat and has got 3 half centuries. But yeah, beyond that, I think Enriquez has been okay, but just hasn't been able to go on with his little sort of 15, 20 odd starts. Yeah, it's concerning because there's gaps to fill and we don't have the answers right now, and there's not long until the World Cup starts.
No, there is not. It is a big worry. I'm going to bring up our final one because this is the one where we can bring in some other ones as well. So our final timed out topic, what have we learned? I actually feel like let's almost just throw the timer out here and bring in some of these comments, I think, here, because I'm the boss and I can do that. One from Entertain First Channels. I think Australian bench strength is not so much strong as we've seen in England and India. Absolutely. That is one of the things we have learned here. This was very much a learning process about the bench strength. And the bench strength is not as strong as some other countries. So I think that's hard to argue against.
I tend to agree. I mean, obviously, when you looked at the squad before the series, you went, okay, it's very bowler heavy. There's going to be a core group of maybe 8 guys who are going to be focused on those top 6 or 7 spots. And it's a real chance for them to play 5 games and cement their spot in the side. But you look at, for example, like a Moses Enriquez, like we just talked about, if he gets 150 or at least a couple of 30, 40 scores, you're looking at him going, okay, he's someone who can definitely be in the T20 World Cup squad. But he just wasn't able to take that opportunity. And that goes for almost everyone in that side, bar Marsh. I mean, there's another comment there from Elijah Pierre about Wade dropping down the order a bit today. Again, it's a peculiar choice. Maybe Australia could have used him a bit more because Carey kind of did slow down the batting a little bit to a certain extent and kind of put a lot of pressure on the rest of the batters. But again, he's had 5 opportunities this series, and obviously he's hit a few big sixes and he's got some starts, but hasn't been able to go on with it. And I think personally he'd be disappointed with that too. He would have wanted a big score here in the West Indies to kind of go, okay, I need to show that if Warner and Finch are going to be the openers, I can be your number 3, or in today's case, I can be your number 6 or 7 if need be, because he's not going to open in the World Cup with Finch and Warner there.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of West Indies, which I just mentioned again, Entertain First Channels asked, are West Indies again a prime contender to winning the T20 World Cup? I absolutely think they're a contender for sure. We've seen on that. I think they've still got some improvement to do. I think the exciting thing for West Indies is Hayden Walsh Jr. and the form that he's in, the fact that they've added really impressive spin. And blimey, just quietly, Chris Gale's still bowling blimmin' well as well, isn't he? I mean, to have the option of Gale, it just looks so, 2 steps, rolls his arm over, and it looks so nonchalant, and it looks like it shouldn't be as good as it is in the way he approaches it, but it is. But Hayden Walsh Jr., I think that's possibly one of the most pleasing things for West Indies to have found that. And in a tournament like that, it's not just their power hitting. They have very good tactics and a huge amount of experience. And I absolutely think they're a contender. There are a few, there are others as well. I think that England side looks pretty good. Pakistan just scored more runs than they did. But, yeah, the West Indies, they're defending champions for a reason.
I mean, when you consider their captain, Kyron Pollard, didn't play a single game this series, that's quite remarkable. And Jason Holder didn't play as well either. So they've got more names to come back into this side. We were talking about Australia's depth before. West Indies' depth in T20 cricket right now is probably as good as it's almost ever been, really, because they've got a solid core of about 20 guys who could rotate in and out of that team, as we've kind of seen this series. So, it's hard not to look at the West Indies as a genuine threat this T20 World Cup, and a genuine threat to Australia's chances of getting out of the Super 6 group stages.
And I just have to bring in Phil's F, who stumbled on here accidentally, has just said, thank you so much. I've learned a lot coming here randomly. We're so glad that you have. Please do come back. You can
welcome
always
anytime.
More.
Yeah.
Anytime. Now, just a couple more there. I see from Entertain First Channels, might bring these up together. Do you think Australia still need to find a finisher in T20 to finish the game in lower order? And Elijah saying, is this the close of Dan Christian's international career? Kind of
wash your mouth out, Elijah. Wash your mouth out. I don't want any of that. He's here for a reason. None of that from you.
We'll see. As I've maintained throughout this, the whole search for a finisher thing, I think they're searching for a team still. They're searching for the best team, and I don't think a clear picture of that has emerged. Yes, having someone in the lower order coming into, you could even see what the West Indies were doing in those, last couple of overs, the power that they had. I mean, they were bowled to really well, but that those players who were coming in then can actually do it if they need to. But the other one I'll bring in, see what you think about this. Pankaj, do you see any chances of Marnus in T20 World Cup squad? I mean, there's a chance, but I don't think it'll happen, just with the proximity of the Ashes and the fact that he hasn't really been playing in that T20 squad. Like, if you bring in another player again in Marnus, and you're still just searching for everything, aren't you?
You really are. I mean, my thoughts on the squad at the moment are Australia's strength with their batters right now are looking at your Smith and Marnus as those people who can go sort of that 100, 120 strike rate for 10 overs. So that means you want to kind of fill your 3-4 spot with them to make sure you build that score. That means that really for someone like Glenn Maxwell, although the talk has been we need to get him facing more balls in T20 cricket, arguably for the balance of the side, his best spot is at 6 and 7. So when Australia do lose a couple of wickets, he can come in and hit big. Because you look at someone like Andre Russell in this series of the West Indies. Yes, when he bats at 4, he can do well. He can score a great 50, his first 50 in T20 international cricket. But then he can also come in at 6 or 7 and hit 24 at a 300 strike rate, and suddenly the West Indies have an unchaseable total. So I feel like, unfortunately for Maxi, because I would love to see him at 3 or 4 and get that 10 overs to bat. But for the balance of the side, I feel like he may be having to come in at 5, 6, even 7 again, just for Australia's best chances of winning this tournament.
Yeah, I almost feel like we have more questions than we do answers after these first 5 T20s of this tour, assuming that the ones go ahead in Bangladesh. So that is it for us at the end of this series. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us on this. We'll be back because there are some ODIs to be played. So why don't we do it again? Why don't we?
Let's do it.
We're getting up really early in the morning. We won't have anything to do. You're locked down. I'm probably going to be locked down soon, and it's too cold to go outside anyway. So thank you for joining us for Timed Out, and we will see you in a few days.